Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of our Super Smash Bros. Fighter Ballot discussion, in which we'll each give our top 5 picks or who we personally want to see added to Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS. So let's pick right up from where we left off in part 1. Alright, well I think this is a good time to move on to our top 5 for characters we want to see in Smash Bros. Wii U. So we're going to start off with, we'll each take turns giving our 5th character, then moving up to our 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And let's go and start off with you, Ash. What is your 5th character that you'd want to see added to Smash Brothers?
Well, I'm fairly confident this is a character that neither of you are going to have on your list, and that's the Hyrule Warriors version of Impa.
My God, that's awfully specific.
It is. Well, you know what? I mean, I played Hyrule Warriors is one of my surprise time sinks of 2014, and I really enjoyed playing that game. And Impa was just so fun to use, and she's got such a cool design. She's really badass in that game. I love the fact that she can wield not only a naginata, but also like a giant broadsword. And she just has a lot of power and heft to her that I personally think would make her a pretty unique character in terms of just kind of the combination of her design, being a fairly lithe, light female, but also wielding this giant broadsword. And I don't know, I really like that interpretation of her character. I think it's a cool design, and I think should be a lot of fun to use in Smash. Yeah,
I think that's a good one, actually. And we didn't get any new Zelda characters this time, right? So
no, and I think we're kind of itching or kind of hurting for a new Zelda character that's not the same ones we've been having since Melee. So
right,
yeah. I actually considered putting Impa on my list as well, just because of that Hyrule Warriors version. I mean, I don't care. I mean, as long as it kind of acts like that or has a few movesets from that version of Impa, I'd be fine. But yeah, I mean, it's a great character. It's one that, we got those rumors and leaks and quotes before Smash came out. I was totally on board with Impa being included, but
yeah,
it didn't happen. But it could happen now. But I don't think many people are thinking of Impa at this point, I'm afraid.
Nah. I don't think so either.
Funny enough, my number 5 character is also a Legend of Zelda character. Except
Conspiracy!
Yes. I chose Toon Ganondorf. I know it's the same set that we've had from all these, the characters we've had before, but Toon Ganondorf is my favorite version of Ganondorf, and I'd love to see him in there. He has the twin swords, he got that great design. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see him get in there, and having a much quicker version of Ganondorf that actually uses his swords, I think it'd be a lot of fun to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it'd be really cool.
So, at this point, I just want to see a Ganondorf that plays like any Ganondorf from the games.
Yeah, who doesn't play like Captain Falcon.
Yeah, exactly.
Man,
so I'm on board with that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd be totally down with that too. Or before Ganondorf was officially revealed for Smash Wii U, I remember, Derek, you and I were holding out hope that even though it was probably never going to happen, that the Ganondorf in Smash was going to be the Hyrule Warriors version, because it's such a cool version of him. But man, failing that, I'd be totally down for the Toon Ganondorf version as well, because like you, that's pretty much my favorite version of Ganondorf.
Alright, so my number 5 is actually one we've already talked about, and that's BanjoKazooie.
Nice.
So, I don't think that's extremely likely, but I do think that would be awesome. I just want Nintendo just buy back all that old, Rare IP, if only so they could put some of them in Smash Brothers, because he was such a, during the 64 era, he was one of the, key properties Nintendo had. He really felt like a quintessential Nintendo character back then. And it's weird that he is no longer. And he would blend in, or they, I should say, would blend in so
it was been really bugging me. I'm like, they.
and they would blend in so well with the Smash Brothers cast, I feel like, as well as feeling pretty, or at least appearing pretty unique.
They could definitely feel pretty unique, or they could just make them a clone of Duck Hunt.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Duck Hunt kind of did steal a little bit of thunder at this point.
Yeah, that's my only knock against their inclusion is that Duck Hunt is thematically so similar, but I mean, obviously they're not at all the same character. And I completely agree, as I said before. I think BanjoKazooie would fit perfectly. I mean, I really don't have too much to say other than that, except, look at all the moves they learn in BanjoKazooie and BanjoTooie. You could easily build an entire moveset out of that.
What if, this is a crazy idea, what if one of your moves was bottles, right? And you actually had to learn your moves throughout the match. You had to.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
You had to summon bottles. He would teach you new moves, more powerful moves, and then.
And BanjoKazooie's final smash would have to be Mumbo's washing machine transformation.
Oh,
right?
yes.
It would have to be.
Oh man, this needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely needs to happen now.
All right, you want to give your number 4, Ash?
Sure. So my number 4 is one that I mentioned before, and that's Dixie Kong.
Oh, she was my original number 5 until we started talking about BanjoKazooie. That bumped her off.
Yeah. So, Dixie, she was very quickly, as soon as DKC2 came out, she immediately became my favorite, one of the core trio of Kongs. Mm-hmm. And I think she's got such a fun, cool design. I love the fact that she can use her ponytail to not only attack enemies but float through the air. She's got her little bubblegum shooter thing, her gumball shooter. I feel like there are enough ways that they could differentiate her from Diddy to make her her own character. And she's a lot of fun to play as in Tropical Freeze. That game alone kind of brought her back to relevance. So I would love to see Dixie brought in. I do feel as though having only Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong in the roster, there's kind of something missing in terms of the DK representation.
Yeah, I'm actually in complete agreement. I'm glad they added Diddy for Brawl, but it is a big franchise, and it's weird having only 2 characters really representing it. So
yeah, I think Dixie was supposed to be in Brawl, right? And then she was cut.
I believe,
that's like the rumor going around. I guess there was data found in the Brawl disc that suggested she was going to be in the game. And my only guess as to why she didn't make it in Brawl, and also this game, is maybe because Sakurai just feels she is too similar to Diddy. I can't really think of any other good reason. Mm-hmm. But I think she'd be a great inclusion, personally.
No, I totally agree with that. In fact, Dixie was my number 4.
Oh, nice.
So there you go. No, she's actually, back in the classic series, like the original DKC trilogy, she starred in more Donkey Kong games than either Diddy or Donkey Kong.
That's actually true. I didn't think about it in that. Yeah.
Well, actually, equal amounts to Diddy, but same thing. Basically, she was there. She got her own game. She became the headliner in DKC 3. She disappeared for DK 64, but that's whatever. But no, she is great. She has the hair thing is extremely unique. She's extremely recognizable, and as soon as I saw her in DKC2 as a kid, you wanted to play her because she was the one that was more fun to play because everybody likes flying and hovering characters. They're the ones that allow you to just really do a lot with the game, and I think they could find a way to make her unique and different from Diddy Kong. I really don't see them as that similar. They feel completely different to me, so I would hope they'd be able to figure out a different moveset for her.
They felt quite different. Well, I guess relatively Diddy and Donkey Kong, but they felt pretty different in Donkey Kong Country 2 even, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought so.
I'm sure they could do something that to differentiate them in Smash Bros Wii U and 3DS. With that said, I don't know why you guys are going on about Dixie Kong when obviously my number 4 is Kiddy Kong.
Are you serious?
I hope you're. I was gonna say.
Oh God, I thought you were serious for a second.
We were gonna have
I was like, I have to leave this conversation. I can't. I have to go vomit.
Well, especially with Dixie too, right? They just brought her back for Tropical Freeze as well.
Yeah.
She's never. She hasn't been this relevant in quite some time. So I do hope she's in the game. That would be such a great addition. And with her ponytail, I'm already picturing her picking up enemies. Maybe you can roll through an enemy and just grab them instantly, and she holds them above her head, right, with her hair.
Oh, that'd
be so great.
And her final smash would have to be her rocking out to her guitar.
Oh, absolutely.
It has to be that, right?
Oh, it'd be so good.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 4 is Waluigi. I know that's going to be pretty divisive, I think, for a lot of people. I hated Waluigi when he came out. I thought he was a dumb character. I know a lot of people still feel that way, but he's completely grown on me over the years. But I felt like the developers kind of embraced the idea that he's just a really dumb-looking character and just went hog wild with him. Well, he's got to be one of my favorite characters now, just to watch. He just does so many crazy, wild things. Whether it's swimming through the air in Mario Tennis or giving the suck it sign in Mario Strikers. He's the most inappropriate Nintendo character besides Wario. And that's part of why I want him. But I think Wario's got to be one of the most hilarious characters in Smash Bros. Wii U, or any Smash Bros. Game that he's been in. I think he's just a lot of fun to watch. He's animated hilariously. And I think they could go even farther with Waluigi. So that's why I want him here.
I don't know. I've made no secret about the fact before that I'm not a big fan of Wario or Waluigi. That said, I have kind of warmed up to Waluigi slightly, mainly for the reasons you mentioned, Andre, that he's just so weird, and probably 99% of that, honestly, is just the suck it thing that he does in Mario Strikers, because it's so Like, it's just so absurd. Like, how did that make it through Nintendo Keyway? How did that make it in the game? And so that alone kind of legitimizes Waluigi in my eyes, because no other Nintendo character has been able to get away with anything close to that. Right? Yeah. So there is that. But the other thing though is there's already like 9 Mario characters in the roster, or something like that. So yeah, I do hesitate, and I wonder if we do need another one.
Yeah, that's the big question here. The other concern that I have is he's already an assist trophy. Does that mean that assist trophies will be it'll be phased out, or it'll just stay and we have 2 Waluigis running around, or what could that really mean? That's sort of why I avoided him, because I do love the idea of Waluigi being in the game, despite being yet another Mario edition.
Well, you can already have 2 Waluigis if you both choose them. So, or I mean, any character, I should say.
True, but we've never seen a character who's an assist trophy and a playable character before. Is what I'm saying.
It would be a little bit odd in that sense. But isn't there that one Xenoblade character that's an assist trophy and also appears during the final Smash?
Yeah, Ricky.
Yeah. So there is some precedent for it, but I mean, in all likelihood, I don't think Waluigi's going to make the cut in this game.
I'm surprised neither of you have mentioned the obvious solution to this, which is Alfonso will replace Luigi, and leave it to Alfonso. He'll do it. He'll come out with the tennis racket and stomp on people, and that's obviously what would happen.
Yeah. There we go.
Sakurai does seem to be a big fan. So.
Yeah.
All right, how about your number 3, Ash?
Well, this is a character we've already hashed to death on this very discussion, which is BanjoKazooie, and I'm kind of surprised that BanjoKazooie made it higher on my list than they did yours, Andre.
I mean, he was a last-minute addition to mine, so okay. He very well could climb the ranks had I put more thought into him. So
right. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say that we haven't already said? He's my number 3, or they're my number 3. I think they would fit perfectly into the roster because of their pedigree. Tons of potential moves. I mean, we've said it all.
I guess I'll move on to my number 3, which is actually King K.Rool.
You took my number 3.
Well, we can agree on this one then, because here's the other thing: is that not only is K.Rool deserving to be in here, honestly, I mean, he is a very classic villain, but that's the other emphasis. He's a villain. We barely have any villains in this Smash Wii U roster. And it's kind of a shame. We need more in here. And but it's also kind of hard to pull them out, because who are you going to use as, obviously Ridley can't be used as a villain. Sakurai's flat out said that. I mean, we could sort of pull from F-Zero for villains, but they're not quite as recognizable. K.Rool is really one of the more recognizable villains out there. I think he has a lot of potential as far as movesets, because, God, how many different forms has he taken over the years? Just pull from all those. We got Captain K.Rool, King, Scientist K.Rool, or whatever it was. I think he could be a lot of fun and have a really unique moveset.
Man, I'm really torn on K.Rool, because on one hand, I mean, I agree that the Smash roster is definitely short on villains. On the other hand, I kind of question how iconic K.Rool actually is, because he hasn't really been relevant to the DK franchise in how many years now? I mean, he hasn't even.
Well, that's Retro's fault.
Well, that's true, but still, I don't know how iconic he actually is. That said, having another heavyweight in the roster would be great, because there aren't that many, and having another villain in the roster would be great, because there aren't that many as well. But I don't know. I've just never been the biggest fan of the character. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he got in, but I'm not really. I'd rather have Dixie over K.Rool, even though she's more similar to another character in the roster than K.Rool is. I don't know. I'm just not really feeling him as much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally on board with King K.Rool. I mean, I think it's cruel that he hasn't been in the roster up to this point.
At least you're getting a little better.
Yeah, I mean, it will be another Donkey Kong character. I mean, I think the ideal situation would be we get King K.Rool and Dixie. That would be pretty great. I think he's iconic because Donkey Kong Country is what brought Donkey Kong back from the brink of nothingness. And I think for that alone, the fact he was in all 3 of those games, plus Donkey Kong 64, and making a few cameos in the spin-off games since then, I think he's iconic enough. And he is another heavyweight. Yeah, so I'm totally on board for that. I think it'd be cool. I'd love to see what they can do with his pirate moveset. I'd be fine if they ignore the scientist.
K.Roolenstein.
Yeah, pretty much everything from Donkey Kong Country 3.
And what about his boxing? Because he's the final boss in DK64 is him, and you fight him in a boxing ring. It was really, really hard too.
See, that ties into the whole Punch-Out ring too, so it makes perfect sense
That's
for King
true.
K.Rool to be here.
You know, I have to concede that it would be they could do a lot of really creative things with his moveset. He would fit really well. He doesn't make my top 5, but he would fit really.
Yeah,
well.
like he's got the gun, for instance, when he's a pirate. He could do some belly flop type things from Donkey Kong Country 1.
Toss his crown around.
Yeah, that's right. He's got the freaking crown.
And he's got that weird goop that he shoots in the DKC 2 final battle where it like freezes you or reverses your controls.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about your number 2, Ash?
Okay, well, we're probably getting into obvious territory for me here, but number 2 for me is Shovel Knight. And that probably comes as no surprise to anyone listening.
Nope. Well, actually, no, it is a surprise. That's not your number 1.
No, I know. Yeah. I know what his number 1 is.
You know when? Yeah, you guys know what my number 1 is. But Shovel Knight is just one. I mean, obviously, it was my game of the year last year, but both he and his game feel like an NES kind of thing that's either came from a parallel dimension or just out of time. Because Shovel Knight has that classic, simple, iconic NES design that just instantly makes him fit in with the rest of the Smash roster. His game feels like an NES game that came from a parallel dimension, and there's so many cool things you can do with his moveset. He's got his shovel moves, he's got the shovel drop, he's got all the relics in his game. There are like 10 different relics. I mean, there are just so many cool things you could do with him, and he feels like a Nintendo star that was just never a Nintendo star back in the day. He really does feel like kind of a third-party character who just has been with Nintendo forever, even though he really hasn't. And, Yacht Club Games, they have made no secret about the fact that they are giant Nintendo fans. They're super down to have him in Smash. They've been, trying to get out the vote for that. I am completely 100% support for Shovel Knight in Smash, even though, like I just said, he's obviously technically not an icon like Mega Man or Sonic or Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that. I mean, you raise a lot of good points. He would fit very well. He's immediately well loved. People just connected with him right away because his gameplay is just that smooth and fun and exciting. And obviously, the developers are continuing to support him and want to continue with this character. So he just hasn't reached his iconic status yet. I think in the future, with the way he's been going, he'll get to that iconic status. We're just sort of jumping the gun here, sort of like how with Roy, he wasn't like he was a brand new character when he was in Melee. So it's sort of that sort of idea. So I can totally see Shovel Knight making it in. I know that the fan vote is out there. People are pushing for it. He didn't make my top 5, but I think I would not be opposed at all to Shovel Knight appearing.
So this kind of gets into the whole question of is a character of the caliber, like Smash Bros. Caliber,
sure,
right? And in this case, keep in mind, I really don't care that much. I wouldn't consider Shovel Knight to be there yet.
Sure.
He could be someday, absolutely. I don't think we're at that point yet. But I can totally see why people would be totally on board with him being in the game, because he does evoke that classic era that Nintendo is such a part of as well.
Yeah.
And he would have a pretty unique moveset, so...
Well, and that's the thing, is I can't exactly sit here and disagree with you. I mean, you raise a really good point, and it's something I've thought of myself. It's like, I mean, Sakurai has said already in interviews that for a third-party character to get into Smash, they have to be really iconic and really special, or otherwise fill a gap in the Smash roster, and the 3 characters we have now do that. And I totally agree, Shovel Knight is not iconic, which is why I'm being a total hypocrite when I say I really want him in, because I love the character and I love the game. But yeah, it's kind of like one of those catch-22s, because I totally hear what you're saying.
How about you, Derek? What is your number 2?
My number 2 is, ironically enough, Shantae.
Nice.
We mentioned her before. I love that series to death. I still kick myself to this day because I heard about the game and how great it was, but for whatever reason, I never picked it up on the Game Boy Color. And so... I actually, because I wanted to play this game so much, I suffered through the iPhone version of Risky's Revenge until I was able to get the 3DS and be able to access the DSiWare to play it the right way. And Pirate's Curse is amazing. It's a really great game. Just every new iteration of Shantae has topped the previous one. Cannot wait to Half Genie Hero. It's one of the few Kickstarters I've actually supported. Cannot wait to play it, and I think she does have that pedigree. She's sort of like more of a cult character, but she's been around since the Game Boy Color. Her age is there. She's paid her dues really, and was able to make a resurgence and come back and become really part of the public eye. She has a great design. She has a ton of moves to pull from, whether it's transformations or just using the items that she can use in Pirate's Curse. There's a lot that they can do with her, and obviously WayForward's completely behind it. And that's why I don't like it. Doesn't feel cynical when it coming from them campaigning for it, because they were part of it. They did all this for Nintendo. They were part of Nintendo. That's where they decided to debut their character as the Game Boy Color. Very late in life, as we wanted to make this, and I'd like to see them be rewarded for it because it is just that good of a game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Even though my number 2 vote went to Shovel Knight, I would not complain at all if Shantae got in, and I would in fact be very happy, because I think, much like Shovel Knight, she has that kind of simple, iconic design. She has the pedigree, she has the Nintendo history that Shovel Knight doesn't necessarily yet. And, she's just a really charming, really likable character. Like you said, Derek, she's got tons of moves to pull from to build a Smash Bros. Moveset. You know what? I would be really happy if Shantae made it in. I can't even say anything else but that. Yeah, I mean, Shovel Knight would be great, but so would Shantae.
I really should play one of those games one of these days.
You should play both of those games one of these days.
I played some Shovel Knight.
That's true.
All right. Well, my number 2 is actually any character from Stone Race FX.
Oh
really?
God!
Wow,
he loves that game.
That's
because it is a great overshadowed racing game from the Super Nintendo that showcased what the FX chip could do at the time, which doesn't look that impressive these days, but it's like a game that Nintendo's completely forgotten about. So it'd be like one of those off-the-wall characters that in this case it'd be something they could do something completely unique with. Because for the most part, every character we've had is either a humanoid or an animal, which is also pretty much a humanoid. In this case, it would be a freaking car, or a truck, or the motorcycle. I don't care which one. I just want one of them in this game, and it'll be awesome.
I mean, I don't know. I was never the biggest fan of Stunt Race FX, so it's hard for me to go there with you. It was fine, but I feel like that would almost be a better assist trophy. I think it would be a super awesome assist trophy, because that is a part of kind of a relatively unknown piece of Nintendo history, but I have trouble seeing a Stunt Race FX car as a character, but that's just me. I don't know. I never got into that game as much.
I've never played it in my life, so I have no real basis for it. I have no idea what kind of moveset it could be or anything like that. I'm not sure how they could even pull that off, but I tend to agree with Ash just because it would work really well as an assist trophy. If we get assist trophy DLC, there we go. I mean, I'd help you out and vote for that, because I think there's a lot of interesting things they could do with it. But as a character, I mean, it'd be interesting if it made it in, but it is definitely a relic of the SNES.
Yeah,
it would be hard to figure out what they could do with a character, but that's what makes it so enticing. Because there is so much they could do with that character potentially, especially with it being a vehicle. And part of what made the game memorable for me was how it felt and controlled, because it had the really low frame rate, right? So they purposely designed the controls and physics around that, where it had this really floaty type feel to it. And I think that would lend itself well to Smash Brothers. Especially with the fact how your character even could blow apart in the game, for instance, if you took a hit too hard. And I think that's an element they could play with within the game as well.
That's true, they could.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like it's something that we haven't seen at all before, and that's why I'm excited by the possibility. Alright, I think it's time for our number 1, so what's yours, Ash?
Mine is obviously Crash Bandicoot.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm totally kidding. It's not
okay. That was a surprise.
I'm surprised you believe me. No,
I didn't believe it at all.
Oh, okay. Number 1, of course, a surprise to absolutely no one. No one is the Chorus Kids from Rhythm Heaven.
Oh, right. How could I forget?
Yeah, yes. Of course. I mean,
really, Andre?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Wow, it just gets better and better. I'll start by saying that the fact that there is no Rhythm Heaven representation in this game at all is just, outside of a couple of trophies, is just criminal. I mean, Rhythm Heaven is one of Nintendo's most creative and most overlooked series. Sakurai is a self-admitted fan of Rhythm Heaven, so I'm shocked that there is nothing in Smash, not even a stage, character, anything. So, of course, we all know that the Chorus Kids were apparently in development at one point, thanks to that leak. What is it, Famitsu? I can't remember at this point.
Oh, Gamatsu, I think it was.
Gamatsu, that's what it was. So yeah, the Gamatsu leak possibly out of the Chorus Kids was being in development at one point, and man, I was behind that from the first second it was revealed, because I mean, they're really unique characters. I mean, talk about a creative moveset. There's so many wacky, weird things you could do with not only those characters, but any sort of rhythm-based moveset if you wanted to actually go that route. And I just, they've got this weird kind of wacky design to them that I think would kind of fit well into the Smash Brothers aesthetic. And I don't know. Rhythm Heaven really needs some representation, and I think the Chorus Kids would be perfect because they're just weird enough to work. And I really hope that there's still some hope, at least, if not for the Chorus Kids, a Rhythm Heaven stage or something, because it really deserves to be in there. But I think the Chorus Kids would be a hell of a lot of fun to play as.
I have not played any of the Rhythm Heaven games. I've seen bits and pieces of them. They look entertaining enough. But I know how much you really want these characters in. And honestly, the way they sounded like they might play would have been awesome, because they are a set of 3 characters, but then we run into the whole Ice Climbers problem again with them.
That's true too, yeah.
And that's what makes it tricky, and that's might be actually why they were cut.
It certainly could be, yeah.
But if we can do like the adjustment, like with the single Ice Climber for like a single Chorus Kid, or what's that one character's name that looks like the Chorus Kids but isn't? one of them?
Marshall. Yeah, like
Marshall.
I would say I would be fine with Marshall too. Like yeah, even just a single, him instead of the Chorus Kids would be totally fine with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that, because it'd be interesting, unique, and would also get people interested in a lesser known series, which is obviously how we got people into Fire Emblem. And if the reactions to my Fire Emblem analysis that I just did is any indication, that series blew up once people found out about it and they realized how great it was. So if they can do the same thing for Rhythm Heaven, all the better.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially with the the new sequel announced for Japan and not the US yet. So
don't remind me.
I think Chorus Kids would be cool. I think having a timing rhythm-based character would be a cool addition, even if it means I wouldn't ever be able to play as them. Rhythm Heaven is a long-running series now at this point that really does deserve more representation than it's received, which is basically nothing. So, all right, Derek, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Isaac from Golden Sun. And that's actually, he's the only one I've actually voted for so far in that ballot. And the main reason is I played Golden Sun when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it. It was a very different kind of RPG. The dungeons were really tough and very puzzle focused, and it just sort of connected with me. And he's conspicuously absent as an assist trophy in Wii U. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see him come back, because he has a lot of potential. His earth-based moves, the pushing, the earthquakes, the sending out sheets of rock from underneath people, there's a lot of different moves that they could really assign him and make him really unique and special. And I think he has I honestly think he has one of the better chances. I hope he does, at least. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many people actually still remember Golden Sun or even Isaac and all that, but I'd really like to see him in, because I don't know, he's a lesser known series. It's done by Camelot. Camelot's done a lot of good work over the years. We got that Dark Dawn a couple years ago on DS, and I don't think that sold that well, because we haven't really seen much out of that series since. But I still have an appreciation for it, and I'd love to see Isaac make his way back in.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly happy to see Isaac again. I liked Golden Sun back in the day. I didn't love it. It kind of almost played like Japanese RPG The Game to me, where it just kind of felt like a perfectly good but generic Japanese RPG. Not a bad one, but that said, it did a lot of cool things, and Isaac himself, like you said, has some really cool, earth-based magic. He's got a kind of a neat design. I would really have no problem with him, joining the Smash roster, and he kind of does fill a gap that no one else perfectly. Other characters have elements of Isaac, but Isaac kind of fills his own unique gap, and I think he'd be fun to play as. And I was going to say something. Oh yeah, I do find it really suspicious that specifically the Isaac Assist Trophy was removed, but at the same time, we know they haven't forgotten about it, because not only is the Golden Sun song from Brawl back in the Wii U version, but they added actually a new song from Golden Sun, Dark Dawn, I think, into the soundtrack for Smash Wii U. So we know they haven't forgotten about it, but it is a little strange that they removed the Assist Trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is odd. I didn't play much of the game. I played for maybe 15 minutes on the GBA back in the day, and that was it, so I don't have much to say. But what I am surprised by, if we're going to get some JRPG representation here, why did no one mention Chrono Trigger?
Well, I'll let you go first, Eric.
Well, I mean, it's Square Enix, and, it's possible we could get Chrono in here or something like that. I mean, the vote's there, but I don't know. It is interesting that my mind didn't immediately go to that, mainly because it's Square Enix, and they don't really push Chrono Trigger that often. So I don't know. What about you, Ash? Why didn't you think of them?
Well, I did, but the thing is, I was trying to keep my list kind of halfway realistic. So
That's true too.
I wasn't trying to vote for any characters who pretty much have 0% chance of ever happening. I guess you could make the argument that Impa is very unlikely, but I feel like any version of Impa could maybe happen. Chrono Trigger is my favorite game of all time. I would be overjoyed if Chrono joined the Smash roster. I just don't think they would ever have even a chance in hell of happening. But if I did,
you think Square would stand in the way? You don't think they would be? You don't think they think that'd be a good idea?
I just don't think they. I don't know. I guess maybe Nintendo would approach Square about that, but I don't know how open to that Square would be. I don't know. Square's weird. It's really hard to kind of predict what they're going to do a lot of the time. I know that they wanted to get Cloud and or Lightning in PlayStation All Stars, and Square said no, flat out. But that
to
again,
be fair,
PlayStation All Stars, yeah, that's PlayStation All Stars. So yeah. I totally get that, but. Man, if I thought that Chrono had a chance, he would instantly be my number 1 or number 2 choice. Probably my number 1, actually.
That was a game changer.
Well, because Chrono Trigger, it's my favorite game of all time. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
So you would go with Chrono Trigger, or rather you would go with Chrono over anyone else in the game? I would personally want to see Frog. Frog would be awesome.
I think Chrono is... I guess if I had to choose, it would be Luca, because she's like my favorite character from that game. Okay. But Chrono is like the icon from that game. You think of Chrono Trigger, you think of Chrono, so... Right. Yeah, I would probably prefer to have Chrono, but man, if I thought he had a chance, he'd be near the top of my list.
All right. Well, speaking of the top of the list, I guess I should give my number 1. I've talked about this before, so it probably won't be any great surprise. Captain N, the Game Master.
God. Well, you talk about reality.
Yeah, man. Here's why, though, right? Yes, is he relevant? No. Has he done anything recently? No. But he was one of those iconic 80s characters. When Nintendo was doing different types of media, like comic books, he was made for Nintendo Power, he had his own TV show, and he was basically the first Smash Brothers. He had Mega Man, Simon Belmont, Kid Icarus, Game Boy, Mother Brain, a whole bunch of Nintendo and other third-party characters in his TV show or comic book. It makes sense, and it'll be one of those completely off-the-wall characters, along the lines of Game & Watch or Duck Hunt, to bring back. Maybe a little bit more so since he's never actually been in the game, but that will give him completely, almost free reign with his moveset and what to do. And he'd have the Zapper, maybe the Game Boy. Maybe he could draw upon some of the other characters that appeared in his comic books or TV show that don't appear in Smash Brothers otherwise. And of course, he would bring the whole late 80s, 90s visual style to the game.
Now, you call Captain N an iconic character from the 80s, and I think that your definition of iconic and my definition of iconic sort of diverge there. Is he really that iconic?
If you grew up with Nintendo in the 80s,
which
you
I
know
did.
Who Captain N is.
Sure, I did, and I do,
right.
But I still
He's
don't know.
Iconic.
I don't know if I call him iconic, though.
That is iconic.
Just because you remember him doesn't make him iconic.
And I know you say that he had Mega Man and Simon Belmont and Pit and everything with him, but I would say he had versions of them. I would say that he had really creepy versions of them. I'm not sure I would say he had them.
Hey, that's canon, man. You can't undo that.
Well, if we get Captain N, if we get Captain N, I demand a green Mega Man costume for Mega
and Simon Belmont.
Yes.
Just because then we'd have every damn character from that show in the game.
Speaking of Simon Belmont, though, I'm actually a little surprised that none of us voted for him.
Well, I never played much Castlevania, so that'd be why.
I love Castlevania, but it's Konami.
Right.
If it's going to get another character back in from Konami, it's going to be Snake. I'd love to see Simon Belmont. He is a great character, but considering what they've been doing with Castlevania, I'm not sure if it's possible.
That's true. What about Bomberman?
I'd be down for Bomberman. I mean, he's also had his troubles recently, but he has a lot of iconic games out there. He's great for multiplayer fun, so it sort of fits that way. But yeah, I'd be down for Bomberman being in. If he were somehow to make it in, I think he's an appropriate choice.
They could probably do a lot of cool things with him too. Like, I mean, just with all his bomb maneuvers, whether it's throwing bombs, putting bombs in the ground. Maybe you could plant them, kick them around. There's a lot of bomb-based material to draw upon.
I think Bomberman 64 would be the key game right there.
That's actually what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I love
and I have to say, like, after the characters we already have, the third-party characters we have, I do feel like Bomberman really is like the last one I can think of who really does have that pedigree, that longevity, that pedigree to be in Smash Brothers. Not that like characters like Shantae don't, but I feel like he is like the last remaining character who might actually have that old school pedigree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember we talked about this at one point before. I think like him and Simon Belmont, I think we put in like a similar class.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like the last. I think at least. I don't know. I feel like they're similar in like. I feel like they're like the last of that era.
Yeah.
That could really be represented.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the difference between them is that Bomberman has an enduring design. Like he looks the same pretty much no matter what, unless you count Bomberman Act Zero, which no one does. But Simon Belmont looks different from game to game pretty much. So
that's true. Yeah.
It's kind of hard. He's not as iconic because he looks different in every game he appears in, whereas Bomberman looks like Bomberman.
So I am surprised by one thing here, though, and maybe it's because none of us thought about it, but no one had an inkling on their top 5 list.
Oh, I don't know why that didn't come to mind.
I mean, it could be because the game's not out yet. But
yeah, we can't confirm its quality at this point, but as far as design, and I have said in the past, like I could totally see the Inkling making it into the next Smash Brothers, but as having them as DLC in this one, I'd be on that in a second. I love the Inkling's design. I think they could do a lot of stuff with what they've shown in the game. Oh yeah, I'd be totally for that.
I mean, I thought about the Inkling, but the reason I didn't include one on my list was because I do feel like the Inkling would be better for Smash 5. I feel like adding the Inkling this soon as DLC would be kind of jumping the gun a bit because, again, Splatoon isn't even out yet, and we don't know yet if it's going to become one of Nintendo's tentpole franchises. If it does, I think Inkling would be one of the top choices for Smash 5. But I feel like adding him or her as DLC at this point would be jumping the gun a bit.
I kind of agree, but for maybe a different reason. In that, for the next Smash Brothers game, they're obviously going to want to have some big new additions, and I think an Inkling would be a good one to fill one of those roles. Mm-hmm. And I can't see them burning through all of them for DLC characters. Like, I'm almost wondering now, thinking on this, if we might get like more B-list characters now, simply for the fact that they would probably want to save some A-list ones for the next Smash game, because they've already gone through most of the best ones they can.
Yeah,
right?
They really have.
So I wonder if that's a consideration.
Yeah, maybe. That's a better chance for Shovel Knight and Shantae.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts at all about anything about the DLC or our top 5 characters before we wrap it up here?
I just hope that, unlike Mario Kart 8, where it's just a long stretch between DLC, I hope the DLC is a bit more consistent with Smash. Even if they just break it up between here's a character, here's a stage, here's a character, here's a stage, that's fine. Just as long as the content keeps coming and having me come back. I'd also like to know more about the damn tournament mode, since, those would be fun to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, isn't that coming with the update next week?
Is it? I didn't hear anything. They didn't mention it at all.
I thought they said it was. I thought the only thing they didn't mention explicitly was the Miiverse stage, which who knows what's going on with that now.
I don't remember hearing about the tournament mode at all.
I could be wrong then. Maybe that's not coming this week. I will say one more thing. It is really fun to be on the easy end of hoping for DLC because, having Mega Man in already, I'm set. If I didn't, this whole DLC thing would be so much less fun for me because I'd be just hoping beyond hope that Mega Man got in. I'd be really upset if he didn't. So the fact that he's already in means it's all gravy from here downhill. Even if the Quartz Kids or Shovel Knight don't happen, I'm still perfectly happy.
Right.
I have a feeling he would have been the top vote if he wasn't already in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Alright, well I think that wraps up for us here, so thanks for watching, guys. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Smash Bros Wii U, 3DS, and everything else gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.